So will Vladimir Putin risk meeting Zelensky in person, and will Trump go to heaven by ending the Russian-Ukrainian war? This and other topics we will discuss right now. My name is Iryna Uzlova, and today with us is political commentator and PhD in political science, Jason J. Smart. Jason, hello, glad to see you as usual. Thank you for joining us.
So great to see you as always.
Western analysts point out that Putin risks undermining his narrative by meeting Zelensky now, though diplomatic pressure is building. Meeting with Zelensky could undermine the narrative he has fostered that Zelensky is an illegitimate Western puppet, but refusing may anger Trump, who has threatened more sanctions against Putin, Russian dictator. CNN reports that Putin will never meet with Zelensky in person because he is afraid and he doesn't want to stop his cruel war. How do you think, Jason, will Putin risk meeting Zelensky in person or no?
I think it's unrealistic. The fact is that Vladimir Putin has said that Zelensky is not a legitimate leader of the country, so it'd be totally irrational for him to meet with somebody who he doesn't consider to be the leader of the country.
Yes, me too. I think that it's impossible at all. But White House think about places where such a summit can be provided. For example, it can be Hungary, it can be Switzerland. Maybe they know more than we, and they believe that Putin will come, because during a telephone conversation this Monday, Putin promised Trump that everything okay. I will be.
You know, I think the reality is that Vladimir Putin himself is a paranoid person. I don't think he'll put himself at risk to meet with Zelensky. And if somebody does come to meet, I doubt it'll be the real Putin. I don't think that Putin is willing to take these sorts of risks to travel to another country, which could very well arrest him. They could very well try to assassinate him on the way there. I don't think he'll take this sort of risk. I think it's just not realistic.
But without this meeting, according to opinion of our parliamentary Fedor Venislavsky, this war cannot be ended. So we are at the same point that we were 1 week ago and a few days ago, because Putin doesn't want a meeting with Zelensky, and without this summit, we cannot stop war. Trump also cannot stop this war.
That's true. The reality is this, is that Vladimir Putin does not want to end the war. And so the summit at this point is just sort of absurd. He's not going to do anything more than what he's done. He keeps demanding the exact same things. And so Vladimir Putin needs to be put in a position of weakness. He needs to understand that Russia is going to lose. And actually, I think this gives a huge opportunity to Ukraine. The more oil strikes, the attacks that there are on the oil refineries in Russia, the more attacks there are inside of Russia that destabilize the country, the more his regime is at risk. And that gives Ukraine a much better position. But until he feels that he's personally, himself, at risk, Vladimir Putin is not interested in negotiating.
To my humble opinion, a first step should be sanctions and pressure, as you mentioned, against Putin, and then all the summit in Alaska, in White House, anywhere with Putin for future. Without pressure, Putin doesn't understand that he must stop war. So why did Donald Trump again start with summit with Putin in Alaska, and how can you assess all the details, all that process we saw in Alaska, and Trump who shows that he loves Putin maybe, or I don't know, we even don't know how to react.
So the reality is that I think that Donald Trump is disappointed by Putin. He canceled the lunch with him in Alaska because he expected that Putin would take him seriously. They'd respect him. But it's very clear that Putin's objectives have not changed, and it's very disappointing to the U.S. president. But the fact is that Vladimir Putin thinks that he's a czar. He thinks he can do whatever he wants. So now is exactly the time we need to have new sanctions. We need sanctions that will break the Russian economy and cause Vladimir Putin to understand that he could very well destabilize his entire country if it continues as he's doing right now.
So disappointed Trump can attack Russian Federation in nearest future or no? Because Trump told to Fox News that if Putin has bad behavior, can be bad guy, I will do something and consequences will be strong. Really, we can see such scenario.
ego is what motivates him in everything he does. So if he feels that Vladimir Putin does not respect him, that Vladimir Putin has not been honest with him, I think it's very possible. I mean, the fact is Donald Trump has made a huge change. You remember just a few months ago, he told Zelenskyy to leave the White House. To look at the change now, where he talks more often about what is happening in Ukraine, he talks about the fact that his wife is very supportive of Ukraine. These are very good signs. And I think that he's very disappointed because he really, in his mind, believed that one, Joe Biden is very weak as a president, but Joe Biden also failed to prevent the war, which he thought he could prevent. But today he was sure, because he's stronger than Biden, he believes, that he would be able to come to power and tell Putin, we have to end this war. And then Putin would just listen to him because he's stronger than Biden. But that didn't happen. So I think it's very surprising for the American leader. He did not anticipate this happening. But now they've seen it happen, it's very possible he will take more extreme response than what we've seen before.
So can we see such a response and such consequences to Putin after these 2 or 3 weeks? Or Putin can promise Trump everything, or maybe use some blackmail against him and make this process for a long time without any results?
I think the reality is that there will be results in the near term. I don't think it'll take long. I think it's before the next couple months. We'll see a very extreme change in the U.S. Either Donald Trump will believe that he's close to a deal and he will try to make that happen, or if he believes that the deal is not possible, he will punish Russia. And I say this sincerely just because Donald Trump has an objective. He wants to say that he finished the war, that he's able to finish something that Joe Biden was not able to finish. And if it's Putin preventing this, I think he'll be very angry at Putin and will take out his anger at him.
Can we say that Putin got a lot of advantages after Alaska? And what are among such pluses for him?
I think the only big plus, realistically, was simply that they delayed the new sanctions. This gave him more time to wait for the meeting with Zelenskyy, or the supposed meeting with Zelenskyy. But outside of this, there's really very little else he got. It bought him time. He needed to show Donald Trump that he was interested in ending the war and to not impose new sanctions. But because that failed very badly, I think there's still a very good chance that we will see new sanctions soon.
Talking about sanctions, Scott Bessent, Minister for Finance of the United States of America, mentioned that sanctions are on table. So, and we see that United States give us weapons, yes, by European money, but it's on time, and sanctions are on table. So Russia will close with some pressure after these weeks, yes?
Definitely the case. And I think that the Europeans are becoming more united now than even before. I think there's more unity than what we expected. The fact is that they themselves realize that the question of the security of Ukraine is truly going to become much more of a European versus American question. And so I expect that we will see in the coming weeks and months that they become much more unified and united to make sure that they have a solution that can help Ukraine and prevent future Russian aggression.
What about China and tariffs against China?
So China is a very interesting case because China right now, remember, is negotiating new trade deals with the United States. And I'm quite sure that the Chinese in these new trade deal negotiations are discussing specifically this. So if, we were to stop buying Russian oil, as an example, what sort of discount would we get on our tariffs being sent to the U.S.? The Chinese are smart. I have no doubt that they know how to leverage this, to use this to their advantage, to make sure that they can use their conclusion of buying Russian oil and gas to their economic benefit in the grand scheme.
But now we see that Trump provided tariffs against India. And can we agree that these tariffs, 25%, they are really effective, maybe in this short period of time, but in general?
Against India, it'll be very effective. I mean, the Indian economy, about 12% of its trade is with the United States. With Russia, it's about 3%. They need the United States. I mean, it is a significant trade partner. So I think that the Indians will have a change of foreign policy. But they also are currently negotiating with the Americans about what the future tariffs would be. And so I'm sure that they're very interested to find how they can improve the tariff situation with America.
What can we say about Zelensky-Trump European leaders meeting this Monday at the White House? What were the most important results and achievements after it? And we all remember this meeting February 28. Now we see another picture.
No, I think that the reality is that the meeting was not very effective. There was, I don't think, many new announcements. I don't think that there was a clear plan going into this. It was more that the Europeans wanted to unite with Zelensky to give him strength when he was meeting with Trump. I don't think it was really an objective more than this. I think it was simply that. It was simply to show that they were in solidarity with Zelensky.
But do you think that Donald Trump, he can be closer to European partners, or he played role like Putin's friend in this at that table on Monday?
No, I think that from everything we see in the news, no, he wasn't really like Putin's friend. I think that he has the same views that he did before on many issues, but at the same time, he realizes that the Europeans are very important for the United States. He doesn't really want to upset them all. And so I think that he's going to be getting closer to the position that we'd all hope to see than he was before.
But can Donald Trump change his mind and position after Alaska, one point of view, after Monday with Zelensky and European leaders, another, and again, from Monday to Friday, from Friday to Monday, so it can be flexible?
I think it is flexible. I mean, I think that there's simply no American strategy. I think it's more simple than any of this, is that simply he has no plan. It's not like Donald Trump really has a clear idea of what he wants to do. Every day is just sort of lucky. He wakes up and he decides, well, let's see what happens. I don't think he really has a strategy.
So no real plan at all for all this half a year, yes, from Donald Trump?
No, I don't see any clear. I mean, I see no evidence of a strategy. I don't think that there's any great plan. I think it's just luck.
What about security guarantees? We think that one of result of this meeting in White House from Monday, August 18, were the questions, the point about security guarantees from both Europe and United States. But we cannot explain all in details because we don't have these details and understanding of the security guarantee, or after some periods of discussion, it will be more clear, maybe at the end of this week or next week.
I think it'll become more clear with time. I think that at the same time, Donald Trump's very ambivalent about security guarantees. He realizes that's something that's outside of what he traditionally supports, but they're necessary. So what it's going to look like and how that's going to look, it'll probably be a negotiation between other countries, like the British, the Germans, the French, who will provide the primary security guarantees, and the United States will provide a secondary role, such as providing air defense or providing weapons. But I think that's the more realistic outcome for what we can expect right now.
So can it be in such format that really Germany, Great Britain give us some forces in different way and options, and United States will give or maybe sell a weapon to European Union, and then they will give it to Ukraine and to their forces in such format?
Sure, I think it's very possible. The fact is, Donald Trump, I think, is going to be happy to sell weapons. I don't think he'll ever say no to this. As long as it makes him money, he doesn't really care. But as far as the other countries go, I think that the British could very well provide troops. The other countries, it's a good question. But for right now, I think it's still very distant. The reality is, Vladimir Putin has no interest of ending this war. So what guarantees can there be when the war is nowhere near ending?
Yes, because first step must be stop of this war or ceasefire, and then peace deal, guarantees, and all about this. But a few months ago, Donald Trump talked about a ceasefire first, and then other discussions, negotiations about peace process. Then Donald Trump stopped such propositions. It's Alaska's influence, or what could be happen?
Well, I think the reality is that Donald Trump, once again, entered into all this expecting one outcome, and he's been sort of surprised by everything that's happened. I don't think he sincerely believed that it'd be so difficult. this process. And I think sadly it took so long, but the reality is he understands that it's Vladimir Putin who wants to continue fighting this war. Putin has decided that he thinks that the Americans and the Europeans will stop supporting Ukraine if he waits long enough. But it's wholly unrealistic. I mean, the Russian economy cannot sustain this war, neither can the Russian military. So ultimately, time is on the side of Ukraine, not on Russia. But unfortunately, Vladimir Putin wants to test that hypothesis.
Jason, how do you think maybe in Russian Federation, among some their power authority, somebody, maybe Trump, maybe anybody else, can find people who are tired from this Putin's Russian war and they want a real negotiation process, or no, or they support all this prolonging of war?
I think that a lot of people in Russia probably want to end the war, but it doesn't really matter what they think. It matters what Putin and the upper leadership of Russia believe. And right now, they want to continue the war. I'm sure there's people in the oligarchy who would like to see it end because it's hurting their businesses. There's people in the oligarchy who have had their money frozen in the United States and Europe. They want to get their money back. So there are people like that. But in general, in Russia, what does the average person in Novosibirsk or Vladimir or Suzdal, what he thinks, does anybody care?
Yes, yes. And even in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, they also think about their money and they think that they are great big state. And after this short but diplomatic victory, Putin can use this meeting in Alaska like an argument to show his power inside Russian Federation.
Absolutely the case. I mean, ultimately, Vladimir Putin has to say that, look, they tried to force us, but I refused to negotiate. I was very strong. And that's all he needs to do. I mean, at the end, when the war ends, no matter what the outcome is, he could say that he won. He just has to justify it to his public. But yes, I agree with you totally. The fact is that Vladimir Putin is most interested in being able to say that he was able to win in the negotiations.
You know, I have a conversation with one of Russian opposition expert, Sergei Zhirnov, and he thinks that for that few minutes together in Trump's limousine, Russian dictator Putin could give something like blackmail, a compromise to Donald Trump. Do you believe in such things, that Kremlin has some documents maybe or some blackmail against Trump and Trump can be afraid of it?
I don't think so. The reality is that Donald Trump, I don't think, cares. I mean, Donald Trump is quite open about his life. He was on TV and radio in the 1990s in the United States talking about his sex life. I can't imagine what he possibly would care about that they could have. Everyone knows that he's engaged in things that are very questionable business ethics. It'd be very hard to think of what he could possibly have that would be any surprise to Donald Trump.
But sometimes we are afraid that he is like an Agent Krasnov. There are such versions, you know about it. And some experts say that Alaska confirmed this theory.
No, I think it's absurd. I mean, the reality is that Donald Trump was from an extremely rich family. He never expressed any interest in the Soviet Union, never expressed any interest in communism. He would not have been actually a good candidate to be recruited. It would be very not typical of the KGB. Why would he have any interest in them? I mean, why would he have any interest in a socialist or communist country? He's never expressed any interest in them. So they would have recruited him in the 1980s. It's just not realistic. It's not serious. I mean, I don't know of anybody who studies the KGB or studies FSB that thinks that that is a serious possibility.
So why, according to this, our conclusion, why does Trump need Putin now? For what? And Russia?
Well, I think, once again, I think that it's his ego. He sincerely believes that because he's a real guy, nastoящий muzhik, that he'll be able to talk to Putin, explain to him, look, this is the way it is, and he'll understand because he understands that we're real men, we're not like Biden, who's not a real man, and so now he'll understand very clearly, this is what we should do. He really believes this. And in his mind, he's the most tough businessman in the history of the world, and the most serious businessman. And so he goes to negotiation, everybody will listen to him and understand, obviously Donald Trump is correct. He really believes that.
Clear. If Trump fails everything on the Russian-Ukrainian war in the nearest future, how will American society react?
I don't think that he will fail in everything just because he realizes the Americans would be upset with him. The American population is increasingly more supportive of Ukraine, not less. And so I think right now he needs to show some results. And that's the reason that I actually have faith, or I feel hopeful, is simply because it's not because he'll do anything because he cares about Ukraine, but because he wants people in America to like him. Only for this reason, because it's his ego. And so I think that if it's in his personal interest that he realizes in America I'll be more popular if I do this, he'll do it. Not because of any ideology, but because of self-interest.
Due to Trump's great internal and external policy, do you believe that Republicans will have good chances on the future elections to Congress?
I mean, historically, since the Congress is controlled by Republicans and the Senate is controlled by Republicans and the White House controlled by Republicans, historically, after 2 years, it flips, it changes. So the majority in the Congress and the Senate will actually be Democrat, and the White House will remain Republican.
Jason, today I say thank you very much for this conversation. I'm very glad to see you all our meetings, and I hope that we will meet next week. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.
Great to see you.
Thank you, and thanks to all our viewers. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel War and Politics 24. My name is Iryna Uzlova, and today we have with us Jason J. Smart, political commentator and PhD in political science. See you next week. Take care.